Teen Titans Annual Number 2, written by Scott Lobdell. It says layouts are by Barry Kitson, as well as some finished art, and then there's like 3 other artists, but I'm just going to give it to Barry Kitson. So, God. Last time in Teen Titans, because of Forever Evil, they were thrown into the time stream, and then they're just kind of randomly quantum leaping everywhere. And then they said, Raven, you need to tie us together so that way we can all figure out where we're supposed to be. And they lost Solstice and Kid Flash, but they're still looking for them. And that's where this issue picks up. Dear Lord, this issue. So Superboy, Wonder Girl, and Red Robin all show up in a future Batcave that has been just utterly trashed and destroyed. And Red Robin apparently thought that this place would have like the technology in order to track down Solstice and Kid Flash, but because it's trashed, all that is gone. So they look around the cave to see what in the hell's going on. And then Wonder Girl comes across the corpse of Batman is inside one of like the suit tubes. And Red Robin's like, what? Hold on. Wait a minute. We're like 20 years in the future, but this body is no older than 5 years old, which means that he like died not like old, like semi-recently. Like, what's going on? And also there's a pile of like dust that is apparently Alfred. So at that point, Superboy has been trying to like prod at the electronics with his telekinesis powers. He ends up activating a function from Batman after his death. A hologram pops up saying, Justice League, I've drawn him here. I'll hold him off as long as I can while you save the children. And then all of a sudden they get teleported out of the Batcave and up to the Watchtower, where they specifically make the point of, now wait a minute, the Watchtower was on the beach in the Forever Evil story we just came from. So, huh? And as they get up there, we see that the person who has teleported them is a 20 years older version of Beast Boy, now going by the name Beast Man, which is just the worst. So at that point, he introduces everything. He's like, yeah, okay, last time you saw me, apparently I went with Bunker to go find his, like, husband or boyfriend or whatever at the time. I didn't even get that from that comic, but I guess that's happened. Turns out there's a couple people left up here, but the Justice League is long said gone. And as we see the people left over, it's Rose Wilson and a bunch of new teens. I don't think any of them get real names. One of them is named Irony. One of them is named Stonehenge. I think one is just called Red. I don't care. None of them matter. So they're all training in like a danger room scenario sort of thing. And as they look up at our current Titans up looking at them, we see one of them gets really pissed off at Superboy. And Superboy's like, I don't know what in the hell's going on. He's like, you murdered the movement in Coral City. And he's like, no, what the hell are you talking about? And so they start fighting briefly, but then Rose steps in and is just like, hey, Superboy, sorry. That's a whole thing. So she takes that kid away along with all the other kids. They never pop up again. And so at that point, Red Robin is separated by Beast Man saying, hey, I need to talk to you like leader to leader. And the rest of them are like, yeah, Superboy says he'll go off on his own. Wonder Girl's going to go have a look around. So Superboy sits out on the outside of the Watchtower, and then all of a sudden he's given like a brain blast by some psychic somewhere. And I'm just going to skip to the punch here because they eventually get to it. If you remember in Superboy, the comic itself, they introduced that Superboy is a clone made by Harvest of a son of Superman from a different timeline, who was then refixed by Harvest in this timeline, and now he's just super evil. That's what's happening here, is Superboy's meeting the clone of the guy he was originally from. So anyway, Red Robin talks to Beastman, and Beastman's basically like, okay, here's the thing. We have a time loop situation going on. You told me in the past exactly what to say right here in order to change things in the future. So I'm going to tell you everything that you told me to say in the past. And then we cut to Wonder Girl. She's walking her way through the watchtower. Her identity is not confirmed, but she just punches her way through anyway. And then the little identity confirmation is like, oh, yes, Wonder Girl, go right ahead. So Superboy goes to the moon and starts fighting. I mean, his name is John Lane Kent. I'm just going to call him John, but it's a whole thing. So anyway, he's like, oh, hey, I never noticed how handsome I was until now. And Superboy's like, you're evil because you took all of your memories of how you beat every hero on Earth and you put them into my brain just then. So I know everything about you now. So we don't even have to justify why we're fighting. So they start punching each other. John feels he has the upper hand, but Connor comes at him and throws it pretty hard back. Throws him into the moon. They make their way into the molten heart of the moon, which I don't even know if the moon has a molten heart, but regardless, they make their way in there. And apparently John's presence is upgrading Superboy's telekinetic ability somehow, but Superboy's like, oh, or John's like, it's not going to matter. And Superboy's like, oh, but it is. I'm still going to beat you. So we go back to Red Robin, and he's just like, but if we're in a time loop, none of it matters because we're in a loop. Like, nothing I say can change anything. And he's like, right, but you don't understand. You shared with me things that you would never share with anyone. Tim Drake. And he's like, oh, okay, I guess that doesn't really change anything. So then we see Cassie makes her way into the records room and she gets a hologram of Red Robin. So they're all bloodied up and beaten, saying, we were betrayed. Cassie, Khan, Raven, Garfield, dead, murdered. One of our own betrayed our family. And then he disappears. And we see that Raven then steps in and wipes Cassie's memory of that recording. So then Red Robin comes in saying, hey, Cassie, I sensed Raven's nearby. And Raven's also there like, hey, I'm nearby. I found her. She was passed out in this room. And she's like, I guess I was. That's crazy. And then Raven tries to explain how, like, they have a special link because her armor is linked to Trigon. It doesn't matter. And at that point, they're like, okay, anyway, are you guys ready to go? Because I just learned a lot of crazy things from Beastman. And they say, yeah, sure, but where's Khan? So he's still fighting John out in the moon. They bust out of the moon. And apparently Khan uses his telekinetic ability to stop their movement relative to the solar system so that everything is still moving except for them, which causes them to hurtle at super high speeds towards the watchtower. And he impales John on one of the spikes. And Khan's like, I did it, and now I'm going to kill you for killing all the heroes. But before he can, he disappears out of time and gets teleported into the Krypton Returns event. Yep. And so John's left there and he's basically bleeding out on the spikes. We see Beastman goes out in a spacesuit and picks up John, brings him into a medical bay. Him and Rose say, okay, this is all part of the plan. We need to get him into Superboy's costume because they look identical, and therefore the rest of the Teen Titans will think that this is Superboy. So they put him in a costume, and at that point the other Titans arrive and they say, hey, we found him outside. He's totally beaten up. He should probably stay here for now. And Red Robin's like, hey, we're about to teleport again through time because we haven't got that locked down. Raven, do you think you're going to be able to keep a hold on him here if we go through time? And she's like, nah, I can't do that. That's too much. We go now together or not at all. And he's just like, all right, fair enough. So they take the badly wounded now John Lane Kent and teleport him through time, thinking that he's a friend. And Robin says, thank you, Beastman, for all you've done. We promise we'll make sure this future never comes to pass. And Beastman and Rose are like, did we do the right thing? Only time will tell. What? Huh? Why? All right, so coming out of this, I thought for sure we were just going to completely wrap up this like jumping around time thing, but guess not. I thought that was all this annual was for, but nope. Instead, what this annual is for is we are separating it out so that the Superboy on their team is not Superboy. He is evil Superboy from an alternate timeline that is actually Harvest's adopted son. Meanwhile, our Superboy is off doing Superboy stuff in an event with Superman. I also want to point out here that at the end of Superboy 24, he just doesn't have his powers anymore. And since this one now leads directly into Superboy 25, because that's part of the Krypton Returns event, that means that Superboy 24 means nothing. All of these Scott Lobdell has a hand in, to some extent. I think Superboy is currently written by Justin Jordan, but like, to some extent, Scott Lobdell sets stuff up. So, whatever. I don't like this issue, shockingly enough. I think that this is stupidly complex for no reason. It feels like editorial just kind of looked down and said, now wait a minute. Our Superboys aren't lining up. How do we have Superboy happening and Teen Titans happening at the same time? It's impossible, I tell you. Let's make 2 Superboys. And Scott Lobdell stepped up and said, I've already got one, waiting in the wings. We just need a time travel story to get him here. It's so needlessly complex. I don't know where this is going to end up. Frankly, I don't care. I'm so done with the whole Superboy doing anything. He's just been pulled around by every other book. So screw it. This one is a I was going to say 5. That didn't feel right. This one's a 4. This one is a straight up 4. It's not that the book itself has anything inherently awful with it. The art is fine. The stories it's setting up may be good, but I've learned from history now that the stories that I hope they eventually get to, they never really do. And so it's all just dependent on itself, and therefore it's a 4.